start off, we've got the mash. Strike water here. It's got all the additions in, all the salt additions. I put them all up, so you can all have a look at them, along with the grain and the hops I'll be using today. KVEIK, for those who don't know, it's a traditional Norwegian ale. It's got a long history, dates back to sort of medieval times and perhaps beyond. And it's made with a particular yeast, and it's the yeast itself which gives it, the beer, its flavour, not so much the hops. Whereas with sort of American and sort of English ales and a lot of the more modern ales, it seems to be flavoured a lot with hops. This one seems to be, it's the yeast character that gives it its seems to give it its flavour. And there are a wide range of varieties of yeast for KVEIK, and they all sort of lend a different sort of flavour and a different sort of attitude to the beer. This one was kindly given to me by John Anderson, and I believe it's a yeast which denotes a sort of lemony, citrus sort of aroma and flavour, which softens off apparently as it gets a little bit older. So I'll be doing a grain to glass with this. So we're going to start off with the mash. We're going to decant 15 litres of 78 degrees centigrade water into the mash tun with view of mashing out at 70 degrees. Now, something else which is a little bit unusual with these KVEIKs, they seem to mash for quite a long time. I mean, some of them are up to 8 hours. This will be, I'm going to mash this overnight, so I'm going to mash it in now and I'll come and see to it in the morning, probably around about 7 o'clock in the morning, so it's going to get a lot longer than sort of 8 hours, but as long as it doesn't dip below 50 degrees centigrade, things should be okay, which I don't think it will in this mash tun because it's quite a good mash tun. So what I'll do is I'm going to add the strike water, and you'll see me for the mashing in with the additional. Right, thermometer's 70 degrees, which is exactly where I want it. All the grains are mashed in, or doughed in. I've got 3.5 kilos of Red X in there. I've got a kilo of Vienna in there, and I've got 100 grams of Special B in there at the moment. There is another grain to go in, but I'm going to put that in steep later on, or not steep, but I'm going to put it in sort of first wort. So that we'll come back for that at some point. Now the other addition I'm going to put in here, now this isn't traditional, this isn't how it would be done traditionally to make a KVEIK, because you'd use boughs and branches and that sort of thing of the juniper bush to give it some antiseptic properties which you would normally get from your hops, and also to give it a bit of flavour and to give the sort of the liquor a bit of a hue, a red hue to it. It gives it a bit of colour. But this time, just to give it a bit of extra flavour, which is it's a bit of the cheats way of doing it, but I'm going to add 50 grams of juniper berries straight into the mash. Just going to mash in now with the rest of it. Just give it a little stir. Get them in there, just to impart a little bit of flavour. So let's see what we get. I mean, you know, anybody who's seen Tony Yates's video on it, it's not quite up to that sort of standard, but to be honest with you, it's rather safe. I'm not a botanist. I don't know what I'm doing as far as plants are concerned, so I'd rather do the safe way and just add a bit of juniper berry just to give it a bit of flavour than to actually start poisoning myself or poisoning other people, because if you're not careful you can pick the wrong plant and do yourself a bit of a mischief. So that's at 70 degrees and it's all good to go. So I'm going to leave this now for, well, I'm going to leave it now overnight, so I'll probably come back about 7 in the morning and take it from there. Right, well, you join me back on the first run-ins. They're coming through the grain bed quite nicely. It's a nice red colour at the moment. Hopefully it won't be by the time it's got the addition of the Carafa 3 in there. I'm going to pour this over the top, but what I've got to do first is I've got to put the Carafa 3 on top of the grain bed, and then it can be sparged through it and recirculated, the first runnings through it. So that's the next thing I've got to do, so I'll come back to that. Right, the Carafa 3. Just put that on top of there like that. I've never done this. I've never done it this way before. I've always put it in the mash. So hopefully it'll sort of work. Let them sit on there for a bit. And what I'll do is I'll pour the first runnings over, so I'll have my tin tray over the top, so you won't see any of those for the time being. And I'll come back to the sparge, and hopefully you'll be able to see what effect it might be having on the wort. See you then. So the interesting thing is, I'm sort of pouring over the first runnings. It's already coming through a lot darker. And very clear as well. I'm really pleased with that. Let's see what happens. I've not even had a cup of tea, by the way. This is the first thing in the morning. I'm parched. I really need a nice cup of tea. So I'm going to leave you with it for a minute, and I'll meet you back with the sparge in a bit. All sparging nicely now. So that Carafa 3 sort of darkened up the wort a bit more. It's got the sort of colour I want. I don't know if you can see it. Going through there. It's actually quite dark in the pot, but it's like a nice dark red. It's what I'm after. That's good. So let's have a look, see what happens. I've got about another 10 litres of sparge water to go through that. So, and I've got my first wort hop additions. They're the only hop additions I'm using. It's just 10 grams of Magnum just to give it a bit of bitterness. I think the IBUs are coming in at something like 19 IBUs, so it's going to be very mildly bittered and neutral flavoured as well. I mean, they're not so to speak noble hops, which is what you should traditionally use, but they're a neutral flavour, so hopefully the flavour of the malt and the flavour of the yeast will shine through. So that's the idea. Right, got my hydrometer adjustment, my hydrometer reading here. It's coming in at 30. Temperature of the water is at 70 degrees. So according to my calculation, it's coming through at about 1.051, which with an hour boil, I'm losing about 5 litres of boil. It's going to should come in around about 1.061, which should give us quite a nice strength to the brew. I'll meet you back with the boil. Right, boil's done. Protaflock's been added, extra 10 minutes onto the boil, and I'm now adding the hot wort, the boiling wort, to the cubes. Relatively straightforward, to be honest with you. No great issues, and I'll probably come back to you when it's cooled to pitch the yeast and add it all to the fermenter, and then see how we're getting on. Right, the final bit of the day. I've just got a star sand in my bucket fermenter. I've got a little, sort of scale thing on the side there for temperatures, so hopefully I better keep an eye on that. I don't have a fermenting fridge, so what I'm going to do, I've got a heated sort of almost like a heated blanket sort of thing, so I'm going to wrap it in that and see how it turns out. Obviously I'll take regular readings of it, see how it's sort of heating up, but the cubes are sort of nicely chilled now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly add it, and I'll come back to when they're in the fermenter. Right, the water's in the fermenter now. Looks like I'm getting somewhere close to about 18 litres. Bear in mind that these aren't that actually accurate. I think I'm getting probably about a litres worth of difference on there. So if I'm reckoning it's about 19 litres, it's coming in probably around about 18. Yeah, I mean it's going quite clean. I left, well, sort of what I left as far as the trub is concerned in the bottom of the thing. I'm gonna let that settle out, and then what I'll do is I'll do a reading maybe tomorrow morning. Let me know what I've got. That's the yeast, kindly donated by John Anderson. Many thanks for that, John. And I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what yeast it is or what sort of variety it's got, but it's meant to give it's like a citrusy lemon sort of, I suppose, ester or sort of tone or sort of flavour to the beer. So hopefully I can do it some justice, John. So here goes. Put that in there without tipping it all over. That's right in there. So what I'm going to do now is let that sit on the top there. I'll stick the lid on and an airlock, and we'll put it somewhere warm. I'll wrap it up in a blanket, wrap it up in this heated sort of pad, and let it sit there for a couple of few days to see how it does. Interesting stuff. See you later. All done now, ready to get wrapped up. And I'll leave it now for a few days, I think. I'll keep an eye on the krausen, and if the krausen looks like it's getting quite active, I'll start skimming a bit off and keep it a bit back, dry it out, maybe look into drying it and storing it. Yeah, so you'll see me back here probably in a few days. I might be harvesting some of the yeast off the krausen. Yeah, so see you then. Right, I've done a yeast harvest of some of this KVEIK yeast. Very easy to do. Just waited for high krausen. It got very thick and very heavy looking, almost like a mousse really on top there. And I just scooped a majority of it off, but I left some behind because it's good to clean up the diacetyl. So I've managed to take off what I can. I've put it on this baking parchment and put it on a tray. It's going to go in the oven on defrost, which is just basically recirculated air. So hopefully by the morning it should be dry. If it's dry by the morning, I'll stick it straight into. I'll take it off of the parchment, stick it in some bags, and stick it straight into the freezer. And apparently it can keep up for years, dried and stored that way. So that's ideal. There's enough air probably for about another 3 or 4 brews. So I'm going to spread it out onto the baking parchment and stick it in the oven. Right, so that's the KVEIK yeast, and it's been spread out liberally amongst across the top of the baking parchment, which is on the tray. To find out how to do it, I actually went on to 99 Ulysses 99 Facebook page, and he did a brew with the KVEIK yeast. And he's actually the one who's John Anderson. He's the one who's actually provided me with the yeast, and it's very helpful. And the guy's very helpful. He's sort of linked me with a KVEIK sort of group on Facebook, and yeah, it's very interesting. Sort of what they get up to, and sort of yeast that they're using, and sort of the methods that they're employing to do. So. Yeah, so what I'll do now is I'll stick that in the oven and let it dry out, probably overnight. So we'll have a look at it in the morning and see how it's turned out. Right, it's KVEIK yeast. It's all been dried out now. It's dried out overnight, probably about 12 hours. And it's just been scraped up off the paper. It's going to get put into that little kilner jar there. I'm going to use a teaspoon every time I want to use a bit and take a bit out. Probably a couple of teaspoons or a big teaspoon per brew. Just wondering whether or not you can actually use this principle of top cropping, drying and storing for all your yeasts, or whether it only is suitable for KVEIK. It'd be interesting to find out. I'll do a little bit of research into that, I think, because it could save quite a bit of money and an awful lot of sort of hassle and aggravation when it comes to harvesting yeast. So that's it. I'll meet you back for end of fermentation to have a look, see what's going on. Welcome back. This is the final section of the KVEIK video, sort of grain to glass video of doing. It's the first time I've done a grain to glass video, and I'll probably do it a different way next time. You'll notice by the footage there's a couple of sections which are missing. It's not any great problem. I mean, the main bit of it's done. It's just the fermentation of it and the bottling side of it I've not bothered recording. I didn't see much point really. I mean, nobody wants to see somebody bottling. It's very boring. There was nothing special went on with the bottling. It just got put straight into the bottles. I was going to just allow the residual sugars to carbonate the beer to make it, you know, like a draft carbonation, I suppose. Maybe a bit more fizz. Probably about two. Probably about 2 on the CO2s. But that didn't work. I had to add 2 millilitres of honey to each bottle, and I've left it now for another 2 weeks for it to carbonate, and it has. What else? The fermentation. Yeah, the fermentation, it lasted 2 days. I thought it had dropped off. I was going to bottle it, and the following day it fired back up again. So we had a section of 2, maybe 3 days where it had its first primary fermentation, which was like a beast, just kept going, and then it stopped, and then it started up again, and it lasted for another 2-3 days. That was all there was to it really. And then after that, it got decanted to a bottling bucket and was bottled. They're the only sort of things which are missing off of this. You've got the yeast harvesting and the spreading out and the drying. So just to sort of recap really of what I'm trying to get to. I don't want to make it too long. It's going to bore people. I was very impressed with it. The way the yeast sort of performed. It needed very little encouragement. It got wrapped. It got fermented out at about 36 degrees constantly for 2 or 3 days. It seemed to thrive on it. It absolutely went ape. It did wonders. It's come away with a new sort of the sort of colour I want. It's very clear. I don't know how it became so clear really. I think maybe it might have been from the extended mash. It probably compacted the grain bed, so it was a very nice tight grain bed. Did the first sort of run-ins, then took the first run-ins back over it, so it managed just to sort of go back through it again, and it's sort of spot on. Because there wasn't an awful lot of cloudiness to the wort when it went in for the boil. It was very clear. There wasn't a lot of protein left, or trub left in the kettle when it had finished. Or even in the cubes actually when I decanted it off into the fermenter. So I don't really know what to say about it really. It seemed to be it's a wonderful experiment really. I suggest anybody you can get hold of some. I think you can buy some. I don't know who it is. I think Gigi Yeast. I think Gigi Yeast do a Voss yeast. I think it is, and that's meant to give I think like a lemony flavour. So yeah, I mean, give it a go. I mean, the way I've done this video is not traditional. It's not even slightly traditional. It's just a variation on a theme. It's like a pseudo KVEIK come beer, really. I've enjoyed doing it. I'd do it again, definitely. I like that sort of whole do a mash the night before, leave it overnight, let it settle out. It's doing its business. It's converted everything that needs converting. Go straight into a fermenter, into the sort of into the loiter tun, and then straight into the boil and bloody blah. Very trouble-free, very easy going, very well paced. I loved every minute of it. It was great. So we're going to go, I think, into the tasting of it. Now it's been in the bottle for 3-4 weeks now. I think 4 weeks, because it had 2 weeks trying to carbonate, which didn't really work. It was like a very flat draft beer, it was okay, but it wasn't very palatable when served a bit cooler. I like my beer to be not fizzy, but I like to have a bit of sparkle to it, so and generate a decent head through it. So I added the 2 millilitres of honey directly to the bottles, re-crown capped them, redid the lids on them, and it worked really well. It's carbonated them, so we'll find out in a minute. Yeah, so it's on for the tasting. So let's cut the crap and let's get on with it. The bottles, so I've got 2 bottles here because I want to fill a Hefeweizen glass, just to give it an idea, allow it to generate a decent head and allow it to sort of a decent sort of appearance. Yeah, I mean, these are my old porter bottles. I've had these for 25 years. They used to be old Tesco porter bottles. I don't know whether anybody out there can remember it, but it's quite a nice brew. And I kept a load of them, and I've got about 50 of them at home. So that's what it's in. Both of them are in it. It's been sat in the fridge in the shed for an hour, hour and a half. So it's chilled, but it's not too cold. It's just about right. So I'm going to crack into them. We'll have a look, see what we've got. Think about that. A little bit of cannon smoke in there, not a huge amount. Yep. Slightly sweet on the aroma. A little bit of yeast smell from it. So pour it in, see what happens. See if this one's carbonated or not. Yeah, it has. You can hear it, it's quite well carbonated. Let's crack open the other one. Let's pour in. A bit more cannon smoke in that one, funnily enough. I don't know whether, can you see that? Is there any, can you see anything coming out of that? The wisp? No, nothing. There's a little bit nestling in the bottom of there, sitting above the beer. Right, that is it. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I can show you the colour with this. I will do a picture for it and I'll stick the picture on. But it's a nicely cool. Have a look at this side. I have to take my word for it. It's absolutely clear as a bell. Absolutely clear, lager clear. And it's got a nice sort of red hue to it. I'm very pleased with the colour. Maybe if I was to be critical, I'd probably go a little bit less with the carafa. I think there's 100 grams of carafa in there. I think I'd probably go for 50. And just keep it a little bit lighter, get more of the red coming through, you know, more visual to the eye. I think it'd be a lot better. I was aiming for like a blood colour. That was the MIDGARDSBLOT, was what it was meant to be about. And it's a little bit darker, but it's more like an oxblood. That's probably how I would say it is. It's like an oxblood colour. I mean, can you see that? Can you get anything through it? Yeah, that's me and my dodgy. There's a little bit there, look. Just a little, just coming through the door. But I'll take a picture anyway. Sorry about that. I'll take a picture anyway, and I'll show you what it looks like in the sun. Right, the head. It's quite thick, it's quite moussey, it's dropped down a little bit, it seems to be lingering around a little. We've got probably about a finger's worth of head there, decent colour, decent carbonation, so you can hear it when it's pouring. It's streaming up the glass, a nice steady stream, it's not over fizzing. there's almost like a toastiness to it, almost like a bread. Now I presume that might be from the special bee going in it. There's very little sort of hop aroma, as you would imagine. There's a fruitiness to it. It's very slight fruit. Not picking up any off flavours. You can smell a bit of the yeast to it. There's a bit of a yeast funk to it, but it's not off-putting. Yeah, I didn't expect to get an awful lot off the aroma, to be honest. But yeah, I'm very impressed with that. I'm quite pleased with that. So I'm going to go straight in for a taste. Is there anything else I need to say about it? The colour? Say yeah, the ox blood, I suppose. Yeah. So I'm going to go straight in for the taste. I've got some of these that are going out. Mostly the people who some people know who it is who are getting it. And I just hope you enjoy it. I mean, I've enjoyed making it. I'm going to do it again. I'm doing a pail upstairs using the same yeast, slightly different technique. I'm doing a traditional sort of infusion mash. And I've kahatu, there's 100 grams of kahatu going in. I've done it also at the, I've added 50 grams at the point of pitching the yeast. So you get that bio transformation. So I don't know how that's going to play out. That might be an interesting one. The yeast might actually make it drop. If it's a very compacting yeast, flocculating yeast, it might drop it right down to the bottom. So it might be clear again. It seemed quite clear the other day. But that's another thing altogether. It's the completely different beers. So whoever gets one of these will probably get one of those as well. But you'll have to wait a little while for that to carb up and to settle down. So cheers everyone. I'm going to go for the taste. Caramel. It's very rich. For something that's only just over a month old, it's like a Belgian beer which has been aged for quite a while. It's got that maturity to it. It's got a very complex flavour. There's very little bitterness. There's a little bit on the back, just a little bit, just sitting on the back of the tongue. But it's well balanced in that respect. This isn't really a summer beer. The body is rich. Porter rich, I would have said. Some fruit, berries, you know, sort of like stone fruits, plums, sort of prune, sort of almost to it. It's that rich, almost like if it had some spice in it, that would be a beautiful sort of Christmas ale, winter's ale. Decent amount of lacing on the glass. So it's only been carved just over a week, I think it was. I think I did it, not this Tuesday, previous Tuesday a week ago. It's carbonated just right, just the right amount of carbonation for it. It's got a little bit of banana to it. If you get it, just get a little taste of it. That sort of like perfume of the banana. Oh, that is very nice. That's very nice indeed. That's got to be one of my better beers I've ever brewed. That is very nice. I think you're sort of almost getting a bit of that juniper flavour coming through. I think that's what that berryness is, because I tried one of the juniper berries and they're very fruity. And I've seen a juniper bush since I've made this, and I'll probably take some clippings of it when I come to do the next one. And you can smell it on the actual branch of the juniper bush. It's actually quite a fruity smell. But that is it. I mean, the head's lingering. It's very, very impressive. I'm very impressed with that. It's got quite a basic malt to it. There's not a lot in it. I mean, it's a small amount of special B, small amount of carafa, 3.5 kilos of Red X and a kilo of Vienna. So you're probably getting quite a bit of that sweetness from the Vienna, and then you're getting that sort of quite richness from the Munich, which is in the the Red X, because the Red X is a blend of grains. But yeah, I'm super impressed with that. I'll go and take a little video of it maybe, or just a little picture of it outside, and let you share this sort of what it looks like. I mean, it's something else. I mean, I recommend anybody go and do it. If you can get yourself a nice KVEIK yeast, make yourself a dark beer with it. Everybody seems to be doing light beers, but this is a dark beer and it is wonderful, absolutely amazing. There's no citrus to it. What I will say about it is no citrus to it. John Anderson, whose yeast this is, he got it from a farmhouse in Norway. They sent him some over. He did a brew. He wasn't too pleased with it. He said it was very astringent, almost like not an acidic, but a very astringent lemon, almost like I would imagine like a lemon peel. None of that in here at all. None whatsoever. There's no lemon. You don't even get anything on the aroma. You get a bit of fruit on the aroma. I mean, it's that head is lingering. It's quite compact, the head. Not very many big bubbles in it. It's quite tight. So there's no lemon in it. It's a completely different beer. I think John Anderson, I think you'd be quite surprised with this beer when you taste it compared to what yours was like. I haven't had the pleasure of tasting yours, but as a comparison between the two beers, the styles are completely different, just with a little bit of alteration of maybe method and grain bill. But yeah, give it a little. So what we got. It's rich. There's almost like a coffee flavour to it. You don't get it. You don't pick it up on the nose. It's like a slight fruit. Yeah. Very good. Very pleased with that. So, to top it off, just to round it up, I'd like to say a very big thanks to John Anderson for being so kind to send me a couple of these bottles out. Oh, sorry, send me this yeast out. We've got a couple of bottles coming to you. We've got a little beer mail coming to you actually. There's a few bits and bobs in there. That's it again. That's it again. Something else. Really stoked with that. Absolutely stoked with it. So yeah, big thanks to John. And a big thanks to anybody who wants to watch this. I mean, it's probably been a bit long-winded. This last bit's been a little bit long-winded. It's been a long old ramble. Be patient. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, because I did. And so, like I say, I wish you all a happy Homebrew Wednesday, and I hope you all have a fantastic week and a great weekend. Enjoy the bank holiday weekend, everybody who's in Britain. Anybody else who's watching from across the world, enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. So, thank you very much for watching. This is a Heathen brewer with a very successful beer, Pack Time 2, and wishing you all well. See you later.